All right, let's start a Consortia SIG meeting. The meeting officially begins when Christopher's computer makes that squeak. So much like all of the SIGs, we kind of go in with, unless somebody is really ahead of the game and submits an agenda item, and that has happened. But we go into these meetings, just kind of seeing what the room wants to talk about, what's going on. It seems like we inevitably start talking about holds pretty much every single meeting, because that is always a challenge. But we've got mics, and we don't actually have anybody online, so you could probably, until that changes, you could probably just shout.
And just a reminder, if you are watching the stream and you do want to participate, make sure you use the link next to the meeting in the schedule, and we'll join you then.
So does anybody have any, what's going on in the consortia? Let me ask plans, because there's usually like 6 or 7 things that we need to start talking about.
We have no problem. All our problems are solved.
All the problems are solved. That's a real credit to Bywater there.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that.
Now we talked a little bit about holds yesterday with Ocean State.
Ocean State, yes.
Blinking on you guys. Yeah, so the problem we've been having is holds not being trapped at the right libraries, and library A is very close to library B, but then library C checks in the book and then triggers the hold for some reason, even though it was already in library B and it's responded to library A. So thank you. My yelling wasn't working very well. We had a crazy night last night. I lost my voice. But yeah, so we have 2 islands involved too, so the islands make it a little complicated with not necessarily wanting to send things off the island unnecessarily. So I'm like a kid clan. So we chatted about it yesterday. I guess not necessarily like a solid solution just yet, but I think we have to just believe it's working.
Yeah, I know we had talked about doing looking at submitting a bug. We were kind of like looking at a spec of trying to use the hold groups so they could be a little bit more, there'd be a few more options with that, where you could set a group and create more of a hierarchy of how it gets filled. So in the case of, if you had islands, those would stay among. So right now you can do local holds priority, but you can't do that into the group setting. So kind of bringing local holds priority into groups would allow you to keep more stuff that doesn't need to be ferried over somewhere, and that transport be more difficult. Where we would love that too. In Colorado, very few islands, but mountain ranges galore create some challenges with getting items shipped over the road, particularly in winter and things like that. So, and certain areas where they just don't go that often. I know one thing we've been facing, we just hooked up a lot of our public libraries to the statewide interlibrary loan system, and holds are going up, and those are coming to some of our libraries that don't have the courier show up right to them. So they have to, they are still like either once a week or every other week driving somewhere to do those materials. But now with the increased volume, that just means people aren't getting stuff as quickly. So we've got kind of we got to figure out a way to maybe reduce their hold burden overall. I don't know if we're going to be able to do that through the interlibrary loan system, because that gets to a whole nother thing where we would be basically trying to apply the transportation cost matrix to through the plugin, which sounds hard. Nick's sigh and head bob indicates that yes, that is in fact hard.
I guess we can talk. Thank you. Kind of similar to that, is we have a few really big libraries, yeah, they take on more of the, not so much burden, but, they get a lot more opportunities to fill the holes if they're open more and we have more staff. And we have smaller libraries who would love to fulfill holes, but they're open less, or have less staff, so they're running their, holds queue less or something like that. So another way, yeah, I'm trying to find a balance where not everything's getting fulfilled by the same 5 big libraries, and
Right.
a little local library can still get a chance to fulfill holes.
And that where that transportation cost matrix could. And I guess I would have, I always go to Jason for my answers on this beast of a thing that I don't want to use.
Why? What do you mean?
You use it as well.
Transportation.
Okay, I'm gonna ask Christopher since he's so eager to talk about it. So would it be like plausible for us to do a thing where we just had kind of like regular library and then just another level of library that gets a little bit less? Would that be fairly easy to set up? Because we have so many branches, over 100 branches, that I don't want to make it complex.
You can make it as complex or simple as you want.
Simple, yes.
I mean, I use a spreadsheet to factor in all sorts of different components to sharing, which, you know, by itself, you know, it's just a ranking. It's just a simple ranking. So if you want things to be less, I guess, less available to sharing around, then yeah, give it a higher rank. But you know, it's once it's past that first rank and that second rank, third rank, it's definitely going to go down the list until it finds something. But you're at least defining an order, you know, from this library to this library. You know, what's the matter of importance.
Yeah, I would just want to, again, to not keep in too many factors, just set something up so we could identify those libraries that don't have the same access of courier service and just get them a few less things in their queue.
So currently, the transport cost matrix actually just looks for the least cost branch and tries to fill it that way. And after that, it leaves the transport cost matrix and just goes through the list of libraries to match them. So it doesn't actually do it hierarchically at this moment. It just looks for it finds the least cost branch or one of the least cost branches, sees if that will fill it.
Oh, so it's not going down through the list. Oh,
no,
wow.
it's not iterative. It's not iterative. Right now, it's a one shot. Can we get it from the cheapest place? If it can, it will fill it, but otherwise it's going to go just to your list of libraries. But we have a development that we're specing at least to, if people want to help support that.
That sucks.
I'm trying to present it very positively. So watch out.
So what do I? People defer to me.
Okay, so yeah, so in theory, just creating 2 different numbers would just push a little bit more to the other branches. Now, my big question is, as we add that on top of all the other things our holds have to check, does that then grind anything to a halt?
You mean after the development, like after it's been, or just in general?
No, just like if I were to turn that on because we have the horrific branch transfer limits.
It should not have a big impact. The transport cost matrix is, I believe, currently only used when building the holds queue. It's not used when an item is checked in. When an item is checked in, we look through the holds, we see it. If it's in the holds queue, we'll use that. Otherwise, we'll just go through the holds and see if we can match that item to a hold that's existing. So you'll just be affecting the building in the holds queue, and it should not be impactful.
Okay, and even if that takes a little longer, that's not a huge sacrifice. Okay, well, just thinking off the top of my head, that might be a good solution.
Yeah, and with that piece of information, I mean, if you go back to George and I did the video last season on the transport cost matrix, and you know, barring that little piece of information that we just shared, yeah, if it's defaulting back to the system settings, then you just have to make sure you have your one setting, I can't remember the exact name on it, but it randomizes or it goes down the list of
Yes,
libraries. You don't want it going down the list of libraries, so because it will always be that top heavy, it will always bother the libraries at the top of the list.
yeah,
Alphabetically, so make sure you're at least randomizing or putting it in an order of priority in that list. If it's going off of that transport cost matrix.
yeah, no, we've definitely always randomized. That's a key feature. It's just the new piece in this equation is some of our public libraries are now and community colleges are now participating in the statewide IOL, and that has just increased request overall. So, and that can't spread evenly amongst everyone because not everyone is eligible to participate. So that's kind of a new factor that we have to figure out.
I think too, though, Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, in that transport cost matrix, you can just turn off certain libraries to libraries in there. I know that you can do that granularly in
The branch transfer limits.
the branch transfer limits, but that's a lot of work in that particular.
It's a tremendous amount of work.
Yes, but in the transport cost matrix, you can just shut off the connection between the two, so that initially it's going to look elsewhere, and then if it's defaulting back to the system, then it's going to go back to everything outside that transport cost matrix.
Yeah, I think what we want is there still to be some stuff that gets there just a little bit less. That is our goal. Well, thank you for dealing with my issue. What other issues are there out there?
I will reiterate, Georgette's not here, but I will reiterate something that's been a concern for her and our consortium. In general, you know, we have some libraries that do collections, and that's one thing that we'd like to see strengthened in koha is the libraries that use collections and how it works, because you know, one of her frustrations is, you know, something comes in and it refunds a lost item charge. That for the libraries that do collections, they've already submitted that to a collection agency, and they don't want that charge necessarily just disappearing when an item just suddenly shows up. And so we desperately need something in koha. I think I've opened up some bugs on this topic, but we desperately need something in koha to indicate libraries that are using collections and whether or not those items should be refunded, or have some mechanism to ask if they want those items refunded, and not necessarily bother their libraries that aren't dealing with those consortiums, because we don't want that just, you know, a global overall turn on or off, whether it's refunding or you know, bugging everybody that's checking things in if they want this item refunded. We want to be able to deal with those consortiums on a branch by branch basis.
So in your scenario, you couldn't do that branch by branch because there is that, because somebody might bring it into a different branch that doesn't have that turned on. That's your issue.
Yeah. It's been kind of a tremendous acrobatic feat working with that particular aspect of koha, because you know, when you're dealing with libraries and the way they function versus this library, it can be challenging, especially with those fees.
So we have a handful of libraries using collections, and the process that they use would be to when something goes to collections, they manually assign I think it's a $10 fee. So when the thing comes back and it gets cleared, that fee is still there. And they're not responsible for that, and that wouldn't get removed automatically because it was manually entered. And then the reporting, ideally automatic, there's a daily report that goes to the collection agency that says this person brought the thing back. But then they can also still see that they haven't paid their collection fee. So until both of those criteria are met, they're still considered in collections. So that's just the setup. It's a little bit more manual work, though. It's not very automated.
Yeah, and I think if there was some setting that you could say, this library participates in, a collection agency, then it would be great if koha, when checking, well, not checking things in, but when something goes lost, like we just recently turned on a setting to help streamline items that are lost in library supplement, the library supplement clean those up. It removes the checkout, but doesn't remove the fine or the fee for the item. And what would be nice is if libraries that were marked as being part of a collection agency, it would turn that into a manual invoice automatically for them, so that if that item did get checked, it wouldn't be removed. So yeah, I technically they could go in there and find all the things that have gotten lost and do the somersaults to switch those over to manual invoices, so there's no way for those things to just automatically disappear on them. But right now it's it's a chore to keep up with.
Well, I know we have a weird setup with koha with at least that particular vendor, which is unique. And because when they had a new person replace the old person, he was very confused by the way what the reports that he was getting meant and all that. And I had to basically explain to him the process because he was wanting stuff that didn't make any sense with that process. So it's kind of like, it's definitely, at least with that vendor, very cobbled together. Could be a little bit more integrated.
So that refund lost charges. That on the circulation rules page, the refund lost charges.
Yeah.
That's not about the owning libraries item, it's where it gets checked in. So like for Barrington, they don't refund. But let's say Burville does. A Burville item gets checked in at Barrington, it doesn't get refunded or does get refunded.
The refund setting, if I remember correctly, excuse me if I'm feeling a headache on top of all this, but the refund setting, as far as I recall, is global, and it doesn't matter where you check it in. If it sees the item that has been lost, it's just going to say, hey, this item's been found and we're giving the money back. There was a recent change setting.
It's in the circles now. You have an option branch by branch.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll have to look into that. But I know there was a recent change that was really helpful that prevented us from getting credits if they've already paid it. So that was a big hassle in the past. So
The problem with that is for libraries that still charge overdue fines, it doesn't put the overdue fine back.
I think that's also a recent thing where maybe not. I'd have to look at it. I feel like that it could be one of those things I've heard about that is coming.
Here's Eileen.
Oh,
Hold on, Eileen. I'll get that.
but yeah, I seem to remember.
They did have an option for that, but like refund lost item charge and charge you over your fine.
Just like.
People can't.
Well,
Oh, wow. So there's extra options in those drop down, like Now, so there's refund lost item charge, only an unpaid refund lost item charge and charge new overdue fine or refund lost item charge and restore overdue fine. So it should be possible to configure it like you're saying, where if there were fines, it refunds the charge, but you still have the overdue fine back. It's not over that.
Right, but if it's already been paid.
This is only in regards to when the item is getting checked in ink. I'm not sure. Yeah, it's already been paid. I think it's supposed to do it that way, but I don't know.
I could say I haven't tested it, but we have very few libraries now charging fines, so. So I haven't messed with it a whole lot, but that was the promise.
Sort of a weed, but it's the thing is, what if it gets checked in elsewhere and no one's paid attention?
Yeah.
And not, and so if we have it on for the libraries that charge fines. Libraries that charge fines, but it's getting refunded because it was already paid, like the actual replacement costs.
Yeah,
Then it's giving that credit to the patron, which they don't want to happen.
yeah,
And then they have to go chasing down, or if they remember this, if they pay attention to see this amount was refunded to the patron. So,
yeah, I would
because
do,
there's two different scenarios, we want something to happen specifically if it's unpaid. And we want something to specifically happen if it's paid,
right,
and I get it with the overdues in there and it's.
I would do some testing with those all those scenarios and just kind of see where it shakes out. My guess is as far as like. Whose rules does it follow has to do with your, what is that preference or control?
It has its own
Oh, that one has its own, the fines has its own,
refund lost on return control.
there you go. So that preference. That preference is gonna tell you how you want it to look at your circles. Is it gonna be the patron that you care about, or is it gonna be the item that,
It's
Okay.
Repeat
Yeah.
that system preference that controls which circles it's going to look at to determine whether it should refund loss on return or not. It's called refund loss on return control. It has three options: check-in library, items holding library, items owned library. So not patron.
okay, it's not patron.
It's always about the item,
Okay,
item or where it's checked in.
okay, so yeah. So that's one of, there's what, like 4 or 5 of those little things that you have to set up to determine what circles are looked at.
Yeah, there's cert control, refund on loss or return control, reserves control.
Yes,
And I think there's at least one more now, but I don't know.
yeah. So theoretically, you could be very confusing and have those point to different places for different things, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it.
Don't do that after I get paid.
Nice, warning that you're making some crazy
Yeah,
errors there.
cert control returns branch is the other recent one I was thinking.
Okay.
of, which lets you choose the return policy. Based on which library, yeah, so that you can have things transfer back and do different things.
Oh, we've got a question over there.
I have a question on an entirely different thing, and this mostly has to do with how koha works. We're in a consortium, isn't here, and when we joined, there was a decision made above me, and I'm not sure what that decision was. We came from a catalog that had scopes. So that we had a specific URL, and when we searched in our catalog, we only saw our stuff or our stuff in our dual branch stuff. Now it shows up, but we see everybody else's stuff too. So, and I know, I think it was a deliberate choice someone made. I don't think I would like that choice, but so the question is that is it possible to have something that only shows us when we're looking for things? And if we can, is it cost prohibitive or like entirely untenable to go back and revisit that decision?
I think there is a setting that will separate your items. Am I correct? Setting, it will separate your items from other holdings. It'll put it on a different tab. But as far as like in the search results, I think you still see, you know, all the results you get are still, you know, if the item exists there, it'll show it unless you're filtering out the items with your stuff, but it's still going to show all the other branches in those results. But it's when you're looking at the record, it'll separate out the holdings on the record itself. There is a setting for that.
This system preference is called separate holdings. And separate holdings branch.
However, it only applies if your patrons are logged in.
Yeah, that's the caveat.
Yeah, and yeah, there is no current way to, on the search results, only show your library's items. And that's one of the exciting opportunities for Elasticsearch is to, currently we don't actually index the items like as a whole. Or we don't index them individually discretely. We take all of the item values and just put them in the record. So if you have an item with a, or if you have a record with an item from branch A, branch B, and branch C, we just store in the record that item is at branch B, A, B, and C. If you have one that's at A and is a DVD and one that's a Blu-ray, and you're looking just for records at item B with Blu-ray, you're still going to get all the items because we don't have a connection between the branch and the Blu-ray. We just have all the values from the items in the record. We need to actually, yeah, I'll stop explaining, but it's a cool thing that I want to work on. Or something that you is going to work on.
So what I will say is we use Aspen Discovery. If you can configure that different ways, and we do that because we have like some schools that just want to use the software. They don't want to participate in lending, so they would never want to see anybody else's items. That's not important to them. So you can configure it so you just look at their collection. You can default to your collection and then expand out, or you can default out to the entire collection and then hone in. So those are some different configuration options there.
So is that different than, because mostly I'm in the staff catalog most of the time. And sometimes I want to see that other people have particular things, but sometimes I don't.
Yeah. The way we do this in the staff catalog is with some jQuery. We can it kind of like highlights the home branch. Sometimes if it's not in the top 10 results, you have to press the show more button on the facet, and then it'll immediately pop up, and then so it's easy to just find that and then quickly limit to home results, but we are using jQuery for that.
Okay.
Well, if you're thinking about the staff side, then I think that doesn't separate holdings make sense then, like, because you can log in.
Right,
Different on the staff side, so.
It only applies to the details page, though.
Is that a configurable by search? Because there are times where, you know, it's like got a new corporate and I want to see like what other people are buying for their, you know, radiology technology program or something, and I would like to see them. So it may be on a search, but if I'm just trying to find all my things that are old and decrepit and I'm trying to get them off the shelf, you know, I feel your pain, but I don't necessarily care about your stuff at the moment. So that's why it's like, if it's a setting that it's like on or off, as opposed to something I could check today, I'm only doing this and.
We don't have any, as far as I know, we don't have any setting to say, if you're in a staff client and you're doing a search to default with your stuff only, right? I don't think.
I mean, you could select the library in the advanced search, but you will still see other items attached to those.
By default, you know,
Yeah.
when you're searching in a staff client, you're just seeing results for the search, whether it's yours, or whether you have a copy or not. What would be more definitions for that library. We kind of play around with this with some of our jQuery and collapse all that stuff, is trying to show the libraries where the items that you have stuff in. But it seems like it would make more sense by default if you're searching the staff point to at least, you know, show your stuff and then be able to expand that out to other libraries.
Yeah, I think we have a ticket that we put in like 5 years ago on that. And then sits there because the jQuery is working, and so we're not, you know, trying to change it a whole lot because it's good enough, but yeah, I think.
So great for jQuery.
Right. Well, it does break periodically and then it gets fixed.
Somewhat related question. So on the topic of the OPAC and not being logged in and being able to do that, would it be possible to like set a cookie with the branch code and store that and then have that letters that have to filter things by default? These is a match. Well, I don't know how to make that.
But it is something that Lucas and I, we've been talking about sometimes that we would like to find a solution to that, because it would solve a lot of problems if you could set a default branch for the URL. And you can do some of that stuff using Apache, but we'd really like to make it so the libraries can do it, and it's not something that we have to do like that individually.
One of the things that we do at home to do a little bit of customization for each library is we have that like a special scoped URL that each library has for the OPAC, so you know.
Our colors that aren't being.
Well, no, it's not that. Not that customized, but yeah, like more limited things we can definitely do and just use certain jQuery to say that, you know, the link has PKCC. In it, then, you know, apply these things and if don't, but if you had a lot of jQuery, I think it would really just overwhelm the system, so it's somewhat limited.
Yeah, the worry about doing things with jQuery is like this jQuery on the staff side that they're talking about, how it'd be nice if we were preference, yeah, but we have worked with jQuery, so we don't. But on the OPAC too, we've done that before. The worry about that one is that when the jQuery breaks on the OPAC for the scoping, it looks real bad. The site is real confusing.
Yeah, I feel like the jQuery is like a band-aid, and like what you really want is to like cure the problem.
So Nick, I'm curious about something. So you mentioned something with Elasticsearch that I don't have a full understanding of, but you talk about geolocations. What is the geolocations aspect of Elasticsearch? And is that something that can be utilized to determine where items reside, or where the person looking in the catalog resides, so we kind of hone in on things? Or am I completely thinking wrong about that?
Tentatively, yes. I mean, stop thinking about koha. Elasticsearch knows how to use geographic coordinates to search for things and tell you when things within a radius of you. So that's the capability of this. If you then had geographic locations stored in the branches table and you had your items, we could look up that item is at that branch, which means that it's near you right now. And we could try to show you the available items that were near you right now. That is very simple in concept to say, it's just making it work. And making it work at scale. So yeah, but I mean, yeah, those are the kinds of things we can do. That's why getting in just this like initial geographic search with the 034 fields, which I heard around and everyone was like, oh, I use those all the time. But like getting that started will let us move up to the next step of doing cool things like that.
Yeah, because I know that one of the biggest hurdles with searching, especially for patrons online, is, you know, initially when they're doing their searching they're not associating themselves with any particular library, so without knowing a location, it's just giving you everything, and it would be nice if it was smarter about that. And you know, we can do certain things with IP addresses, but IP addresses aren't always reliable either, because you know your supplier may be across the state line. So
about the geographic, I was looking at the one I'm told was, oh, the 034, which is in a big record, but it's on an iron record, so having something linked to their branches would be a much easier fit, then I wouldn't have to like retrofit everything that, as I currently have in 034. You know, particularly if you're a single library, it doesn't really matter, but if you've got a consortium, like everybody's in a different campus.
Reminds me of 034, Joe, if you want. Was it 034?
Oh, for the geographic searching that is being done in Elastic Search, it is based on the 034, where you enter a latitude and longitude. And I think it's that usage is really intended for the like a patron could come in and say, hey, I'm gonna be going to Germany, I'd like books on or about Germany or like from that area. And so if you had your 034, they could like search Germany. I think I don't know if this one they can just put in a region, they have to put in the numbers, but or search on a map, but then give them books that are like, related to that area. But yeah, you enter your geographic coordinates for all your records, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, who's gonna go back and extract all their data and check the 034 and mark at it and see how many they have?
ChatGPT, right?
Okay, any other things going on in your libraries? There's more of you, yet you're quieter than a normal Consortia SIG meeting.
Okay, I have a question. We talked about it in another group, but it relates to Consortia, so I'm gonna just here. Lists. So I have some lists that I just want staff, like they're for staff workflows. It's to help me communicate with staff. I really don't want my patrons to be able to see them at all because it has nothing to do with it. It's for my staff. But then I also have lists that are specific to the Manila library. People at Tyman don't care what Manila's new books are. They want Ty's, new books. Is there a way to limit a list to either staff only view or OPAC only view or by library?
jQuery. Probably do it with jQuery, but if the you probably do it with jQuery, but if the patron is not logged in, then they're not gonna, it's not gonna apply to them. So that's the limitation with something like that. But no, there isn't anything built in this time to limit public lists to certain groups. Be awesome.
Like, we wanted to do the same, we had the resources. We wanted to do the same, but we had the resources using naming conventions, so our list of lists on the homepage is absurdly long. And so the problem would be that sometimes we do want to show everybody everything, and sometimes we don't want to show everybody everything. It would be sad for the school librarians literally next door to not be able to check our list of the state word titles. Like, because we already have a list, it's for them, so if I limited all the ones to them, then there's no being able to toggle back and forth would be great, but that's a lot of things.
So what do you do with your names like? Yeah, sure. Show me how you. Make
it's
your
not-
lists, so that at least they sort correctly or display.
I don't know about correctly.
Oh, the way you want them to.
I mean, the reason I'm, not because I'm super proud of it, but because I genuinely can't remember. How it's done, so. So they basically put teen in front of teen, youth in front of youth, so we've got, instead of juve, we say youth. And the schools all use. They'll put the name of their school at the beginning, I believe. So in order to end adult books about Ukraine, it just gets really weird. And so the initialism are for each school, PMS, which is super funny. How do you work there and not get every day? PHS, so it's not effective, but that's the only way we've been able to do it.
It seems like we have a mechanism that we use for reports that would be kind of nice to work towards with
Yes,
the lists. I mean,
I would
the
love to
public
be able
lists,
to tab them.
yeah, if we could group them, yeah, like we do reports, that would be something which would be helpful.
So I'll just say my solution to lists, because we didn't use that a lot in our previous system, was to hide them. That I don't have to get any questions on them except for the periodic. Is the koha this? Yes, let me unhide that for you. Now you can go forth and use lists, but everybody else has no idea it's there. Sometimes that's an administrative trick.
Okay, I have one question, and this could be possible, and I don't know how. Is there a way to basically, and this may be how private works, I just don't know, where I can see my full list, but I can share the link with someone and they can view the list. Is that possible in Koha?
I am not the person to answer
Does
that.
anyone know?
Yes, but something changed in either this release or the last release to make it a lot easier to show who can use and who can't. So I am looking for a system preference, which says agent or a system preference. I'm pretty sure somewhere they added like a section in system preferences for controlling who can who inherits lists when open, and so look along those lines and so you have more flexibility than say 6 months ago, or it's in the design on a paper.
Okay. So my theory is, if I can share the link, I can create a page of lists. And I list the list. But put the URL in it, they just can't use it from the drop-in list feature, which I don't know if they would use it anyway, but at least be a little bit more like the live guide, I guess.
A little bit, City of Portsmouth, Virginia, welcome to my life. Could have just, I'm like. Yeah, I don't have it set up to do. Oh, that's because there's no. Oh, almost. Works now. There we go. We put curated book lists. Page, list of lists. Award winners. Oh, actually, these are just anchors. So. That this is, yeah, we do that.
And those are private.
No, these are public lists,
They're
but
not public, they're just.
yeah, so there's a link to the list. The link you're looking for is the number of the shelf number. If you ever look for shelf number links, that's what you're looking for. So at the end of the URL is shelf number equals and then the number of the list. And the only reason that one looks different is because. There you go, you can see it right there. So you can. See shelf number 1016. So you could scope their page just by adding. Only that school's links to that page. She's thinking.
So technically you could, you could create a page that everybody views and have whatever lists that you're sharing there, but you could have a page that is specific to whatever you're logged in as. And it's just showing that stuff, and then maybe even say other people's stuff that you might not care about. So, and which would link back to that main page, that default page, so you could, I think that's a really neat work mechanism, especially with those pages now.
Got about 10 minutes left. If we want to use them, it's not mandatory.
I came all this way and it's fun.
You want the full conference experience? Well, then I would suggest a topic and we can continue.
Chairs way.
I'm just thinking, wasn't there something important we wanted to talk about that we've been talking about? Yeah.
Just holds. I think several of the people are not here for that discussion, but I'm sure we can resume that on our next Zoom meeting and get right back where we left off.
What kind of things are you talking about, though? Maybe some of us want to include it.
Oh, just it's a wide ranging discussion of holds, just different ways that so everybody's set up differently. So there's different challenges. We talked a little bit earlier about the geographic challenges, that career challenges, things like that are reflected. I've been assured that this is a bad idea, but the fix to my problem would be to simultaneously look at both sets of circles, but I've been told that's a fundamentally bad idea that will ruin all of your libraries, so I'm not allowed to pursue that.
I do have a question regarding holds. And probably not related to anything we've been talking about, but I think it was 2005 when they did the change with the holds queue. There was like I can't remember.
Real-time holds.
Real-time holds queue. Initially, when they came out, it was questionable whether or not it was affecting performance or the results on the queue. Do we know if there's been any change in that? We had initially turned it on and then we turned it off because of some questionable results on that. So I'm wondering if
Did you turn it on,
changes.
Emily?
No, I was looking at you.
Yeah, so we've been working with back and forth with Nick and I think Kyle has done some of it too.
to fix a lot of that stuff. So I can't tell you exactly which point updates all of this stuff is in, but there have been bugs in, all right, in 2211, there were updates to the way background jobs work. So that the computer basically, instead of throwing all of your holds queue updates and all of your Elasticsearch updates and everything into like one giant queue where it can only do one thing at a time, there were a couple of different bugs to allow the system to do more than one thing at a time. Both just in general, and I think Lucas did a really nice one for Elasticsearch, which would do a whole bunch of Elasticsearch at a time instead of like you've done a batch edit and now you have 73 totally separate like things that have to happen sequentially. So those came out in 2211. And like in our system at least, those ones truly solve like the processing line problems. Like we worked with Bywater to get our system configured to do the right amount of multitasking so that now we don't have any of those flags at all. Things happening just like instantly. I know there have been a couple bugs coming through of like, you know, the real-time holds queue should be assigning a thing in this situation, but it didn't. So now there's a patch so that it will assign things in that situation. And I think there's been a couple different ones and I don't know what they are off the top of my head. But I think there's a few that are in there by like 2211.7 or 0.9 or whatever. Sorry, I can't speak to those in detail. And there's a fun patch coming in 2211.9, which I made, which made them randomized better because they were not randomizing nicely. Or should make them randomized better. Haven't tested it on our lives yet, fingers crossed.
Yeah, we turned that on a bit ago. The one thing we didn't know, but we found out was that if you want to get it randomized, there's a cron job that has to like kind of override the real-time holds queue, or else everything just sticks, even if you have that static. So if you're thinking about turning it on and you have random holds queue, just keep that in mind. It's easy to set up, but if you don't know about it, all of a sudden things change really quickly.
Can you clarify on that just a little bit? So, I mean, because I am finding out some new things about the transport cost matrix that I didn't know about all these years, but so apparently randomized is in play for us if the first, I guess, the first place on the transport cost matrix is not valid, then it goes back to the system randomization. So if we turn on the real-time holds queue, are you saying that randomizing doesn't?
There's something you have to do that forces to do it anyway, that forces to do it even though you have that on, and then that works the same as normal.
I think you're actually referring to the bug that Emily fixed.
Okay.
Which I guess maybe it's not like for Bywater. I thought we backported it for everybody already. But essentially, the background processes the job, like it opens another script and it says, hey, go do this for me. And when it does that, it also passes it, hey, here's the seed that you should use for your randomizing function. And when you give every function the same random seed, random is no longer random, it's deterministic. And so essentially what Emily found through a lot of sleuthing, which like I'm so amazed by, was that it was using this libraries in the same order every time. So they had libraries that were just getting slammed. But so I think that's what it was a bug, and I don't think it's a static.
So we don't need so we may have a cron job that is no longer necessary that is running.
It might be a patch or something that was in there, yeah. I'm not sure what it was.
Yeah, that patch is coming out in 2211. Yeah, that patch is coming out in 2211.9. So if your system is upgraded that far, please let me know if it's working. Our test system is upgrading that far, but our live system is not yet unless Firewater has done magic on the figure.
All right, well, if there's not anything else, we have mostly filled the time. What I would like to end with is just another promotion of the two things we're getting to desperately need soon at koha-US, and that is a venue for next year. So you'll be seeing an email very soon saying, hey, we had a great conference. Let's already start thinking about the next one. So please consider that. And then board positions of particular interest to me is having a vice president. So if you have any interest in that and would like to talk to me, I can kind of talk about what is all involved in that. But I initially got on the board as an at-large, and my reasoning was if I do this, no one will ask me to be the president or the vice president. I thought that was pretty clever, but it was at last year's conference where I was inspired to do more and ran for vice president. So that hopefully someone in here is thinking that as well, because we've had such a great conversation and discussion, and you're all leaders in the Koha community. So it would be great if somebody could think about doing that.
I will add to that, you just say, you know what, like I said the other day, it's great for people to be involved as a member, or just even a user coming to our site to get you resources and connect with people. But being a member, you're doing certain things, but being a board member, you're doing other things as well. And that, you know, being a board member does look good on resumes. So I mean, it just looks good on the things that you've accomplished. And I find it fulfilling to have been on the board. I enjoy working with these people. I do enjoy being involved in coordinating the conference. You don't have to necessarily be on the board to be involved in coordinating the conference, but you know, these kinds of things look good to your employers. So if you want to make yourself shine a little bit more to your employer, please join the board. You know, we don't ask too much, and we'd love to have a variety of people and inputs. So please consider it.
And I'll also say, like, and you're all way ahead of me on this, but Nick and Christopher won't remember me from the Portland conference because I sat in the back and didn't talk to anyone. But I got, you know, over that and progressively started to get more involved and did that at a pace that was good for me.
So I've been on board, I guess, 2 years.
Yep.
It's not a lot of work. You do have to give up your first Wednesday of the month morning for an hour. That's pretty much it. The rest you do more if you can as needed. I have had to miss a couple of meetings over those 2 years, and everyone's been okay with it. But I mean, it's fun. You get to know what's gonna happen before everybody else. So if that's, you know, interesting you. Especially like. Right, now I don't know if I will ever be brave enough for the vice presidency of presidents. You other leaders should do that. I'm also on time for that. But those positions I think require more work. But overall, I mean, it's fun.
And you get a great feeling of accomplishment at this exact moment when you can officially say the conference is complete.